Welcome, and thank you for joining this training for First Presbyterian Church's Abuse Prevention and Response Team, or APART. We're grateful for the time you're taking and care you have for our youth and children, and thank you for sharing your gifts with them. Today, we're going to walk through our APART policy, which is essential for creating a safe environment here at FPC. We'll discuss definitions of abuse, how to recognize signs, our legal obligations, and specific guidelines that help us maintain a protective environment for youth, children, and vulnerable adults. First, it's important to talk about why abuse prevention matters. Abuse is a reality with far-reaching impacts. Nationally, approximately 1 in 7 children experience abuse or neglect each year. Additionally, when it comes to abuse allegations, it's estimated that between 90 and 98% of sexual abuse allegations are true, with the very few number of false accusations usually occurring during custody battles. Here in Montana, the Child and Family Services Division received over 17,000 reports of child abuse and neglect in 2022, with physical and sexual abuse comprising a significant portion. These experiences often lead to serious long-term consequences, like PTSD, depression, anxiety, physical and health problems, and challenges in education and relationships. Through this policy and our efforts today, we're working to reduce the risks and impacts of abuse within our community. In Montana, mandatory reporting laws apply to many of us, including clergy, healthcare professionals, educators, and others in positions of authority. According to Montana Code, any mandatory reporter who suspects abuse or neglect is legally required to report it. The legal mandate reinforces our moral and ethical duty to protect vulnerable individuals. So, let's go over how to recognize signs of abuse and the steps we need to take to respond swiftly and responsibly. Understanding what constitutes abuse is crucial. Abuse can take many forms. Physical abuse involves intentional harm, like hitting or shaking. Emotional abuse includes belittling, shaming, or isolating someone, which can have profound effects on their well-being. Sexual abuse is any form of sexual contact with a minor or someone without the capacity to consent, and it's always considered abuse, even if a minor appears to consent. Neglect is the failure to meet basic needs, like food, shelter, and safety. Sexual harassment is any unwelcome conduct of a sexual nature that is severe, pervasive, or persistent enough to create a hostile or abusive environment, affecting an individual's employment, education, or access to services provided by the church. This conduct may include verbal comments, physical actions, or visual displays that interfere with a person's ability to work or participate in activities. Being aware of these definitions helps us stay vigilant and ready to act when needed. Knowing the signs of abuse can make all the difference. Physical signs include bruises, fractures, or other injuries that might not match explanations given. Behavioral signs can include withdrawal, aggression, sudden changes, or fear of certain adults. Emotional abuse symptoms might show as low self-esteem, depression, or extreme anxiety. Neglect might be seen through poor hygiene, malnutrition, or a lack of proper clothing. Our role here is to remain attentive and recognize these indicators so that we can respond quickly and appropriately. Screening and background checks are essential to ensuring that those working with youth, children, and vulnerable individuals are trustworthy. To qualify for volunteering with youth or children's ministry, volunteers must meet a few qualifications. Prior to serving in this ministry, volunteers must have had an active relationship in the life of the church for at least 6 months. Additionally, volunteers must be at least 18 years old and a minimum of 4 years older than the oldest student whom they are serving. Additionally, all individuals working with children and youth must undergo a background check before they begin and every 3 years thereafter, as well as complete this APART training and every 2 years thereafter. These records are kept secure and confidential for 8 years after someone stops serving. The application and screening processes, which include references and our required period of active participation in the church, help us to build a strong foundation of trust within our teams. Setting and maintaining clear boundaries is fundamental to creating a safe environment. Primarily, we follow the 2-adult rule, where 2 non-related adults must be present with children at all times. We maintain an adult-to-child ratio of 2 to 10, which applies to both in-person and virtual settings. When transporting minors, drivers must be at least 21 years old, with their licensure and insurance both on file at the church, and made aware that their personal insurance is primary in the case of an accident. Technology use also has boundaries. When it comes to social media, engagement such as friending or following students who have reached 9th grade and above is permissible with parental consent. But in general, group messages are the preferred method of communication, and we avoid one-to-one messaging unless we have parental consent in writing. Messaging minors to the end of accomplishing ministry goals may only take place between the hours of 6 a.m. and 10 p.m., and we absolutely prohibit using disappearing message platforms such as Snapchat for communications with minors. Finally, with parental consent, one-to-one meetings with minors is permissible for accomplishing ministry goals. These meetings have to meet a few standards, though. First, they must take place in public spaces, such as at a coffee shop or a local park, and never behind closed doors, such as in a leader's personal vehicle or in a room with a shut door. In the event that a student may need to be pulled aside from the group for a one-to-one conversation, this must also be done in plain view, within the visibility of other leaders and students, such as taking them to another area of the room or stepping into a hallway or any other plainly visible area by others. Our protocols around restroom use and sleeping arrangements are designed to ensure privacy and safety. Adults should wait outside the restroom when minors use it and assist only if necessary, keeping the door open. Whenever possible, 2 adults should assist. For sleeping arrangements during overnight events, it's crucial not only to separate men and women, but also adults and minors. Exceptions may occur in parent-child scenarios, or in circumstances like group dorms where separation is impracticable. These measures are designed to protect privacy and create a transparent, comfortable environment for everyone. Let's talk about the Abuse Prevention and Response Team. The Abuse Prevention and Response Team, or APART, is our resource for handling allegations or concerns regarding abuse. The current APART members and their contact information will be known and published with the current APART manual, available in various locations at the church. This team is trained to handle sensitive situations confidentially. Should anyone have concerns or information to report, APART is here to listen and take the appropriate steps according to the church policy and state law. Let's go through the step-by-step reporting process. If you ever suspect abuse or witness policy violations, it's essential to know the correct reporting process. First, start by contacting your immediate supervisor and an APART member. APART, again, is our Abuse Prevention and Response Team, who are trained to handle sensitive cases. Their contact information is available with your copy of the APART policy and on church premises. Remember, if you're a mandatory reporter, you are also required to make a report to Child and Family Services or the appropriate authorities. For your report, it's important to document your observations. Write down details like the names of those involved, dates, times, any unusual behavior, and any specific context that prompted your concerns. If possible, do this right away while it's fresh in your memory. When reporting, include as much information as possible to assist in assessing the situation accurately. Avoid making assumptions or judgments. Stick to factual observations. Lastly, remember that confidentiality is critical. Only share information with those authorized to handle the situation, typically APART members or necessary church leaders. This not only protects privacy, but also helps prevent misunderstandings and ensures a respectful response to sensitive situations. Let's get practical about boundaries and red flags. Boundaries are essential in maintaining a safe environment. Let's go over examples of appropriate versus inappropriate interactions with minors and vulnerable adults. Appropriate interactions might include friendly gestures like a pat on the back, a side hug, a high five, public, group-based conversations, and general encouragement or support. These actions are respectful and don't single out any individual. Inappropriate interactions can include frequent or personal gifts, having one-on-one conversations in private, or engaging in excessive or personal texting. These actions, even if well-intentioned, can easily cross boundaries and create situations that are unsafe or uncomfortable. Remember, giving gifts occasionally can be appropriate, but only in certain celebrations such as graduations or promotions, and only small gifts. Excessive gift-giving, on the other hand, can become extremely inappropriate. Common red flags to be aware of include adults who might insist on spending a lot of alone time with specific minors, or giving gifts without clear reasons, and initiating private or after-hours messaging. If you encounter or observe these sorts of situations, feel free to use polite but direct language to enforce boundaries. For example, if a minor or adult asks for a private conversation, suggest meeting in an open, visible area. Or if someone wants to exchange frequent personal messages, politely remind them that all church-related communication should be in a group context or with parental permission. Clear boundaries are not only about protecting the minors and vulnerable adults, but also about safeguarding yourself and others in this church community. Let's talk about the confidentiality of records. Confidentiality and respect for privacy are cornerstones of this policy. Whenever reporting concerns, it's vital to limit discussions to APART members or authorized personnel who need to know. This respects everyone's privacy and allows those trained in handling these matters to address them appropriately. When documenting sensitive information, ensure it's stored securely and only accessible to those involved in the case. Avoid using insecure methods like public folders or unencrypted email to share or store sensitive details. To illustrate confidentiality in action, let's consider an example. Suppose you witness an incident of inappropriate language directed at a minor. Rather than discussing it with others, report it directly to the APART members, detailing what you saw and heard without adding personal opinions. This way, APART can evaluate the situation based on facts alone. Finally, it's important to maintain empathy and professionalism in all interactions. If someone approaches you with concerns, listen attentively and thank them for coming forward. Remind them that you'll only share this with those who need to know and that they can rely on you to handle it responsibly. This level of respect ensures everyone can feel safe in coming forward, knowing that their concerns will be taken seriously and treated with care. In wrapping up, let's recap a few things that we've covered over the course of this training. First, we started with definitions, beginning by defining abuse in its various forms: physical, emotional, sexual, and neglect. Understanding these definitions helps us clearly identify and respond to different types of abuse. Additionally, we discussed our legal obligations, such as for those of mandatory reporters here in the state of Montana. Under state law, anyone who suspects abuse or neglect is required to report it to the authorities, with potential legal consequences if they fail to act. This legal framework further supports our ethical and moral duty to protect vulnerable individuals. Additionally, we went over recognizing signs of abuse, such as physical, behavioral, and emotional indicators of abuse, as well as signs of neglect. Recognizing these signs equips us to be vigilant and proactive in safeguarding the well-being of those in our care. We also covered specific protocols and procedures that help us to maintain a safe environment, including the 2-adult rule, bathroom and sleeping arrangements, appropriate boundaries, and the role of a part in responding to reports. These protocols are designed to prevent abuse, ensure transparency, and provide a clear path for reporting any concerns. Additionally, I want to make sure that you have a few critical resources on hand. These contacts are here to provide immediate support for anyone experiencing or witnessing a crisis, whether related to abuse, mental health struggles, or other urgent concerns. First, the Suicide Prevention Hotline is a national hotline available 24/7 for individuals experiencing emotional distress or suicidal thoughts. Anyone can reach out by calling 1-800-273-8255 for support and guidance. For those who might prefer texting, the Crisis Text Line offers confidential help via text. Just text MT to 741-741 to connect with a trained crisis counselor. This service is also available around the clock. And finally, if there is a non-urgent issue that requires police involvement, you can always reach out to the Missoula Police Department's non-emergency line at 406-552-6300. In closing, thank you for dedicating your time and energy to understanding these important policies. Abuse prevention requires vigilance and a collective commitment to safety. Please remember that if you ever have concerns, the APART team is here, along with local support resources and hotlines available to assist those in need. If you ever have further questions or require more clarity, feel free to consult your APART manual or consult an APART member. Together, we're building a strong, safe community where everyone is valued and protected.